If you click off this video within the first few seconds and don't listen to what I've got to say about Damon Sheehy-Guiseppi, that's fair enough. But what I do want you to learn is that Damon got 318 yards in one of the oldest leagues in Europe, one of the most competitive leagues in Europe that's had former NFL draft picks play within the same position. And he did it on his 7th week ever in his debut season in Europe. I think that's the key thing that I would just want people to take away from this video, is just how good Damien has been in his rookie season in Europe with the Ghana Frogs. Now, of course, any player that has had practice squad experience, you would expect to do well in Europe, but that is not necessarily the case. And as I mentioned, he already has 318 yards and an IFL record. 2 players, including him, have got over 300 yards in an IFL game. 40 years this league has been a thing. And like I said, it's had NFL draft picks play within the league. Now, Damien has some of the best routes just overall in Europe. Inside, outside, comebacks, snags, hitches. He can do it all. He has a very varied route tree. He hits it with snap. He comes off the line fast. He's effective. He's efficient. He has great burst. He has great explosiveness. And he has huge big playability short. Damien's short quickness is arguably second to none. As routes encapsulate that very well. He's very snappy. He breaks them off in a certain way. He's very effective when it comes to beating a man on press. He manipulates space super well. He can find gaps in coverage with his route running. He won't rush through the route to get to the end of the progression. There's a clear connection with his quarterback where he can take his time. He doesn't always run all the way through because he knows he's going to be open at certain points. There's also his foot dexterity, getting his feet in bounds, realizing where the first downs are, extending the plays, being able to do stuff with the ball in his hands. Now, there is so much good stuff about Damien that I'm not going to be able to get to in this video because I don't want it to be an hour long. And of course, with the clips I'm showing, you'll be able to see a little bit of everything that I'm going to talk about. Now, his sharpness and the route quickness is just the start of what makes him so good and gets him that separation, which is incredibly hard for any player to do as consistently and as reliably as Damien does. Any receiver that can't catch the ball isn't going to have success in any league they play in, regardless of if it's in Europe or stateside. Damien has very safe hands. Like I said, he can extend the play. He finds the space in coverage. But more importantly than that, he comes down with the ball through contact. He can adjust his body to the catch to make backward passes. He's not playing with NFL quarterbacks. The quarterbacks he's playing with are talented, but then sometimes the balls are behind him. He can snag it. He can turn his body around 180 degrees to make a catch that you wouldn't think that he would be able to even reach. He's shown he can bring down the ball in clutch situations. He tracks the ball very well on deep passes. This is something we've seen all season with the Frogs, is that he is a huge big play player for them on deep routes and on short plays because of his elite hands. Even the subtleties and nuances, like bringing the hands in late to catch the ball just so the defensive back can't get the jump on him. High pointing the ball as well at his highest point and coming down with it effectively. Using his full length and catch radius to snag the ball out of the air past the DBs. And even though he doesn't have elite size, about 5'11", 190 pounds, 200 pounds give or take, he can get over the top of defensive backs extremely well because of his supreme athleticism, and he has the hands to bring it down more often than not. We saw it several times, goal line fades, one-step dropbacks, slants, hitches, comebacks, pretty much anything, Damien can bring it down a very reliable rate. I could probably count on one hand how many drops I watched Damien have throughout the season. Now, of course, I alluded to it earlier. Damien's release package is, in my opinion, the best release package we have in Europe. He doesn't necessarily have to start off the line. He can come as a motion man. He has effectiveness now because of his burst and his speed. The NFL experience and the locker rooms he's been at shine through. Odell Beckham Jr. was a player he played with at the Browns, so you can definitely see how he has incorporated that footwork into his release. Stems, stutter steps, ins and outs, zigs. He can do pretty much anything with his feet, and it seems like he just knows how to create space on defensive backs. I think something that goes very much under the radar with him is that he will do a few moves in a row, make the defensive back feel comfortable, and he'll burst and snap it in a different way where they're off balance and he's got another 5 yards of space. The same thing is with his route running, where he's not rushing through the process. He's taking his time. He's able to, with his snappiness and his explosiveness, to make it work by slow playing releases when he needs to, coming out fast when he needs to. He has a very clear understanding of coverages, he has a very clear understanding of the defender he's matched up against, and I think that he is unrivaled in this area of his game throughout Europe as a receiver. I don't think that there is anyone that has as good and as deep of a bag of a release as Damien. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to say, you fear the man who has trained one move 100 times rather than the man who has 100 moves that he's trained one time. That's valid unless it's Damien. Because Damien, you can tell, has trained those 100 moves 100 times, and he has the ability to hit you with so many different things that becomes incredibly unpredictable of what he's going to do and borderline unguardable. If I'm being nitpicky, play speed. His play speed is lower on certain plays when he knows he's not getting the ball. When it's a rush play, sometimes he's not an effective blocker. We'll see him come out of the block slow or not at all. Sometimes if there's certain plays that he knows he's not getting the ball, this makes it predictable for the defensive backs to read and linebackers to read if it's inside route combinations. He's not an elite blocker, really. He will engage at times, but he's certainly not an elite blocker. It's not necessarily a massive issue because of the value he brings as a returner, as a rusher, potentially as a elite receiver. It's just that his motor and play speed is not as high as other players in his position. I mentioned at the start about Damien's accomplishment when it came to his 318 yards in week 7 against the Scorpions, which by the way are one of the best teams in the IFL this season. But he has not just done that. He is leading his team by over 1,000 yards, which is insane. He has 13 touchdowns, 10 more than anyone else. He nearly has, so he has 1,353 yards. He nearly has as many yards receiving against opposition than the opposition have against the Frogs, which is 1,542. That's not fucking normal. Furthermore, he is first in yards of receivers in the IFL, which isn't a surprise necessarily given his domination so far. Griffin, younger brother of Ryan Griffin, who is the quarterback and former NFL player, who is the quarterback of the Scorpions this season, is in second. Mac has 718 yards, which is nearly half of what Damien has. He also has 5 touchdowns, which is 8 less, and a shorter touchdown, less catches, less yards per game, and less receptions per game. If you're into fantasy, Damien has been every single week pretty much fantasy leader at his position. If that's what you're into, FL does have a fantasy league, which I think is one of the very few leagues in Europe that does have that. And overall, I think that Damien might be one of my highest rated, if not a top 5 receiver in the entirety of Europe. It's his debut season. I am very happy that he has made his way over to Europe, and I hope to see him in more leagues. I hope to see him in Italy again, finish the season. Hopefully he can win championship. I want to see him in Germany. I want to see him in the ELF. I would love to see Damien in the ELF, just to see how he competes with people like Robitaille and Willie Patterson, who I kind of think are pretty similar players. But honestly, I might give Damien the edge. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. This was a good fun to make. 1 week into the ELF season starts, so I got to get a bunch of content out there. But I wanted to do something that wasn't ELF. I wanted to look into the IFL. I do a lot of stuff around the IFL that I enjoy because it's a fun league. You get people like Damien who don't exactly get as much recognition as they deserve for being one of the best receivers in Europe, and I think that he is. So if you like this one, please like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you and goodbye.